Alrighty, welcome back everyone, it's Garland here bringing you another Neverwinter video, and today we are going to be diving into the Hellbringer Fury Mod 11 build and guide. Firstly and for, as always, full disclaimer, you can basically do whatever you want for Hellbringer Fury, this mod. If you want to strictly build it for AoE, you can. If you want to strictly build it for single target DPS, you can. There are very valid, different options out there when running full Fury or, a deviation of the build that I'm going to be bringing to you guys. There is no wrong way to do it. They all do DPS. As always, this is just a guide to put you in the right direction. If you want to tinker with the build yourself or any aspects of the guide, feel free to do it, and then let me know how it goes for you personally. So starting off, we're going to start with our race, which is a main difference from previous mods. And this is a personal choice for me. We have switched to the Dragonborn race. To gain the 3% crit and the 3% overall power. Tiefling is still a very valid option. However, depending on where you're personally at in the game is what is going to determine what race you want to go with. The Tiefling bonus with the X amount of damage when a mob is 50% or less, that is going to be up to you. For me right now, we're melting everything, so the 3% power and the 3% crit outweighs the bonus for Tiefling for me personally, but like I said, depending on where you're currently at in the game, the Tiefling might actually do more DPS for you personally, so you're going to have to make that decision. As always, if we look at our general statistics, we're still going 100% full Constitution and 100% full Charisma. Now, if we do jump into the gear, this is also going to be personal preference, guys. There are so many options out there available to you guys now. Me personally, we're going to be using the 4-piece Vivified Relic Armor. So it's going to be the Relic Head, the Relic Armor, the Relic Arms, and the Relic Feet. And like I said, this is personal preference. You can get the stuff that drops out of dungeons and still be adequately equipped, such as the Harl's Gaze from MSVA, or the Life Silk Spinneret from Epic Temple of the Spider. It just depends what you have access to. I would recommend getting the dungeon drops and then actually going for the relic gear, but that is perfectly up to you. Moving right along for the artifact weapon set, we are using the relic set, which is going to be best in slot currently. Mod 11 does bring the new Ascendant weapons into the game, and that's going to be personal preference, guys. If you want to get the Aboleth weapon set, or even the Fae set, the Aboleth set is going to be a 4% increase, the Fae is going to be a 3% increase, versus the Relic set that is a 10% increase. However, as we all know, the Relic set is a little more harder to obtain than the Ascendant set. So if you want to invest the time and farm the legendary marks from MSVA to try to, restore your relic set, that is going to be up to you. It's a time ratio. It depends how much you play the game, If you can grind out MSVA and get your legendary marks, then you're going to want to get your relic set. But if you, don't have access to MSVA or you're struggling with MSVA, the Aboleth Ascendant set or the Fae Ascendant set is still viable options for the weapon set. So that's going to be your personal choice, and I will leave that up to you guys. If we do look at your artifact powers, we're going to be using Hellish Rebuke on the weapon. And then if we come down to the offhand, we are going to be using ACC, All-Consuming Curse, for the 5% crit severity. And this is only because Flames of Empowerment is still currently broken on the offhand. It does not work. Once they do decide to fix it, we will switch to Flames of Empowerment. But for right now, ACC is your best option. As far as the secondary power goes, for the stat increase, I'm currently going with the combat advantage bonus. However, if you still need AP gain somewhere, you can use the AP gain. That's also going to be personal preference. Moving right along, the shirt and pants, for instance, we're just using the same thing. The 145 gear. There is a shirt in the game that is, I believe, item level 160. The statistics on it aren't that great, but if you're trying to maximize your item level for whatever reason, you can get it. It's just up to you. Now, our 3-piece set, currently we are still using the Orca set. So that's going to be the necklace, the waist, and your Shard of Orcus artifact. For an overall 20% increase in DPS currently. It's going to be best in slot for right now. The rings, we're going to use the Rising Precision +5 and the Rising Power +5. Now, ideally, I would like to have a Brutality +5 instead of the Rising Precision. However, we all know that the +5 rings are not easy to get. So basically, for your rings, you're going to want to use whatever you can possibly get, whatever you have access to, that's going to boost your stats of what you need is what you should be using. Now, if we look at armor reinforcement kits, on the left side of my character sheet, we did go all power. So for the helmet, the armor, the arms, and the feet, we did go power. Now, if you're lacking critical, you can change this to critical. That's going to be up to you. You're going to have to balance your own statistics. I'm going to say that a lot in this video because it's important. You guys have to balance your own statistics. For the right-hand side on the reinforcement kits, we're using action point gain because it's the most logical decision. We don't really have access to anything else in the game for DPS class other than the action point gain. So the necklace, the 2 rings, and my belt all have AP gain on it. For your active artifact, we're going to be using the cleric symbol, or the sigil, rather. And this is simply because we just want to spam as many dailies out as we possibly can as Hellbringer. So your Brood of Hadar, for instance, you're just going to want to spam it non-stop. It's just overall DPS. Now, your other 2 artifacts are, they're going to be personal choice. You have to balance your statistics out. Right now, I'm currently using the Thane Book of the Dead, which is 1k crit and 1k armor pen, and also the Kessel's Spheres of Annihilation, which is 1k power and 1k armor pen. Now, however, currently, right now, I am really over-capped on armor pen, so I do have intentions on switching out both of these artifacts. I'm going to be looking at like 1k power, 1k recovery artifacts. I'm also looking at the wizard sigil, which is 1k power, 1k crit, because I do need a little more crit. So you guys have to balance your own statistics. I can't tell you which artifacts to use, other than what you should be using as your active or your 3-piece set. But the other 2 artifacts are main statistic boosts depending on what you need. So if we do look at our statistics right now, when my bonding companion does proc, my armor pen goes up to over 7,500, almost 8k. It's well over the cap. You guys, you only need 6k armor pen, so you have to balance out your statistics somewhere. Now, if we do talk about enchantments, that's another thing. Enchantments, you need to balance out your statistics. Like I said, I'm going to say that numerous times in this video. Currently, we are going to be using all darks, I believe. Darks for the lifesteal and all of my defensive slots. And then 100% full radiance in all my offensive slots. Now, you can use dual statted ones, such as brutes. If you want to use brute enchantments, that is going to be totally up to you, for the power crit. It all depends on how you balance your stats. As you can see, I do have 4 Azors here on both rings for all that crit strike. I do eventually want to replace these to 100% full radiance for maximum power. As Hellbringer, your pillar of power is based off your base power, so you want to stack as much power as possible. So that should cover up the race, the statistics, and the enchantments, as well as the artifacts. We are going to move right into the powers. Now the powers, we will go over the powers in the rotation video more in depth in the rotation video. However, I'll just go over very quickly of what you should be going for. We are using Eldritch Blast as the secondary at will, as well as Hellish Rebuke as our main at will. Our personals, we are using Flames of Empowerment, as well as ACC, which is down here. And then for our encounter powers, we do use Killing Flames for single target, Fiery Bolt for AoE, Pillar Power, which is the bread and butter for the Hellbringer. You cannot not use it. You have to use it. It should be on your rotation, no matter if it's AoE or single target. And then finally, we use Hadar's Grasp for single target and sometimes AoE, depending on the situation. Like I said, we do have Blades of the Vanquished, we have Warlock's Bargain. All of these are valid options. We will go over these, like I said, more in depth in the spell rotation video, which will be, a link in the description. As far as the dailies go, Brew to Hadar, you're just going to spam this non-stop on boss encounters. And then we still do slot Tyrannical for AoE situations. So that's going to wrap it up for the powers, guys. Let's move on to the build itself and the feats. Now, there are slight differences from this build from the 10.5 build. However, I did say that there are many different options you can do for Hellbringer, and it's ultimately all going to be viable. And it's going to be up to you and personal preference on how you want to personally run Mod 11 right now. So for the basic feats, nothing has really changed here. We're going 3 out of 3 Weapon Mastery, 4 out of 5 for Energizing Curse, Empowered Rituals 3 out of 3, 5 out of 5 for Determined Casting, 2 in Blood Pact, and also 3 in Devastating Critical. If you do roll a human as your race for whatever reason, you will gain 3 additional points. I just suggest you put all 3 points into Blood Pact for the bonus damage from Constitution. Now moving right into the build itself. We are going the Power of the 9 route. So we're going to take Parting Blasphemy, 5 out of 5, and then Power of the 9, 5 out of 5. Now, like I said, you can spec into Revelry if you so choose. Revelry, I believe, is going to be it's slightly less DPS for you personally. However, you're going to be buffing the group a little more. So depending on what sort of role you want to play your Hellbringer as, that's going to be up to you. But you can spec all the way into Revelry instead of Power of the 9. Power of the 9 does bring some group buffs to the table, but it's mainly for yourself. You're going to gain 24% DPS from Power of the 9. Moving right along, we're going to take 5 out of 5 for Critical Promise. Gatekeeper's Empowerment, the only reason we are taking this is for single target encounters. You do gain a lot of damage off of Hellish Rebuke. So this gives Hellish Rebuke 25% more DOT damage. If you do not want to do single target damage and you want to build your Hellbringer for AoE, Offering to the Prisoner is a valid option. You're going to get 5% DPS every time you kill a cursed target for 15 seconds. This is good for, FBI, MSVA, or Spell Plague. When you're clearing all the trash mobs, it's a good boost in DPS. But when you're coming to a single target encounter, this doesn't do anything for you, unfortunately. Moving right along, we're taking Infernal Wrath over Hell Touched. I would like to have both. Unfortunately, it's just not in the cards right now. So Infernal Wrath basically just your Lesser Curse, which you're going to get from your ACC, All-Consuming Curse. So your Lesser Curse is going to toss on 5% debuff out there. And like I said, Hell Touch is another valid option if you so choose, when you're soloing lesser dungeons or just soloing, campaign stuff or just soloing in general. Anytime a mob hits you, they become Hell Touched and you do 10% more damage to them. So it's a very valid option. And that's going to be up to you, how you want to personally build your character. Moving right along, obviously we're going to be taking Executioner's Gift for the 15% at will and encounter counter DPS increase. Now this is a personal choice of mine. We are going back into Murderous Flames. for the 30% increased damage for single target and, you know, some minor AoE damage if necessary. You don't have to take Murderous Flames. You can take these 5 points and take Hell Touch or Offering to the Prisoner. Like I said, there's just many options available right now, and ultimately they're all viable. There's nothing here that if I go against another Warlock and he's not using Murderous Flames and he's using Hell Touch or Offering, the DPS overall is pretty much all equal. Finally, we are taking Brutal Curse, which makes our Warlock's Curse do 30% instead of 20%. It's 10% increase of that 20%, so you're going to do overall 30% more DPS to your cursed target. So you're going to want to curse everything as per normal. And then finally, of course, Creeping Death. We all know what, you know, Creeping Death does. It's the big bad DOT. So that's going to wrap it up for the actual build itself. Like I said, guys, you can tweak this to your own liking. This is what I am going to be running personally in Mod 11. Until we do get 11.5, then we are going to be making significant changes in 11.5. But for right now, this is what we are going to be running for Mod 11. The boons, we are going to skip over the boons for video purpose. Just so we can save some time on the video. I will go in boons more in depth in the written guide when it gets up. And a link to the written guide will also be in the description as always. Now if we move on to companions. Now companions are a hot topic with Mod 11 because we did get Illusionist Gambit. And you can get companion gear out of Illusionist Gambit. So your legendary active summon companion can be basically anything you so choose it to be. However, I would ideally like to get the Sellsword, as the Sellsword does have 3 offensive slots, where the Con Artist only has 2. So you'd gain a little more power increase from the 3 offensive slots, obviously from your bondings. And then the Sellsword has very specific gear, unfortunately, so you have to farm the gear from Illusionist Gambit. If you can't get the gear to gear out your Sellsword, there are other options available. As you can clearly see here, I do have 2 of the current rings, but they're rings. I don't need rings. So they are working on my Con Artist right now. I do have the Fierce Ring and a Heroic Ring, which are both dual offensive slot rings. The Fierce Rings are power crit, the Heroic Rings are power armor pen. So depending on what kind of statistics you personally need on your character, I personally need Fierce gear. I need the Fierce gear for the Sellsword. But for right now, you know, worst case scenario, you can still run the Con Artist. You're just going to still have to deal with having that 1 defensive slot, which isn't a horrible, you know, situation to be in. If you have 3 valid rings, even if you're running Storm King Thunder rings, so if you're running, you know, Helig rings or Dode rings, if you're lucky enough to have 3 Dode rings on your Con Artist, then that's still a valid option. You know, you mainly are wanting to have your 6 offensive slots. You know, each of these need to have dual offensive slots. So whatever you use to get your double offensive slots, that's going to be up to you. Whatever legendary, excuse me, whatever legendary companion you actually go for, that's personal preference, guys. You can use the Sellsword, the Rebel Mercenary, the Con Artist, any companion out there that is fast enough to proc your Protector's Camaraderie and keep your bonding stones up is a valid choice. So as far as my offensive slots go, I am using 6 Black Ice. Which is power, crit, and recovery. Now you can use brutals in here. You can use 100% full radiance if you want to maximize your power. That is completely up to you. It's personal preference. Now, of course, you do want to have your 3 rank 12 bondings. Like, no question about that. So that's going to cover the legendary companion. Now, as far as your actives go, I am currently running the Wild Hunt Rider, which is, you know, 10% increase for 5 seconds. The Air Archon, which is more raw DPS, you know, 5% more. I am running the Siege Master, which is 4% on normal maps and then 8% on the Stronghold map. And then finally, the owlbear. I cannot stress how important the owlbear is if you're running a Hellbringer build. A lot of people are under the impression that the owlbear doesn't work any longer with Pillar of Power. That is not the case. You have to have an owlbear. It's literally 30% of the Hellbringer's DPS. Pillar of Power and the owlbear is very important. It's a very important combination. So if you do want to run a Hellbringer, you are going to need to get an owlbear companion. And that's going to wrap it up for the companions, guys. Hopefully, you have some idea of what legendary companion you do want to run. Like I said, you will have to farm the gear for it from Illusionist Gambit. Finally, let's move on to the mounts. If you're lucky enough to have a legendary mount, I do recommend the Tenzer's Disc. That way you can have the Tenzer's transformation for your legendary combat power, which is just a buttload of stats that you can't really pass up. The Tenzer's does have a slow animation when you are casting it, but I mean, you just have to add it into your rotation. You have to get accustomed to it. Now, I personally choose for my equipped power the 4K recovery. Now, if you do have a 4K power mount, you can use the 4K power mount. That's going to be up to you. But right now, I choose to use the 4K recovery. But like I said, you can choose to use the 4K power. Now, if we look at the stable, obviously you're going to want to go for all epic insignias. However, I do understand epic insignias are very expensive. So as long as you can make the insignia bonuses that you need, you can use blue insignias or even green insignias as long as you're getting the insignia bonus, guys. But eventually, yes, you are going to want to get obviously all epic insignias because you gain a lot of stats. I view the mount system as bonus statistics where you can further balance your statistics if you choose. For my insignias, I mostly have power insignias with some armor pen insignias and some crit insignias. And, since these are so expensive, whatever I currently have is most likely what I'm going to keep, and then I'm going to balance my statistics elsewhere. Like I said, I am overcapped on armor pen, but you can clearly see that I have armor pen insignias. So that's 600 armor pen just from 3 insignias right here. Ideally, I should switch all of these to the skill insignias, which are crit strike. But like I said, the epic insignias do cost a pretty penny. So for me to rebalance the statistics on the mount page, it's just not viable. I can balance my statistics elsewhere. So as far as the insignia bonus, this is pretty much what you're going to want to run for your Hellbringer. And that is Assassin's Covenant. Obviously, you're gonna get more power from Assassin's Covenant, Artificer's Influence, and Artificer's Persuasion. Now these are amazing. Both of these in combination with spamming your daily slash artifact. If you're using the DC sigil, you can have these up every minute. And it's just going to give you so much recovery that you're going to be able to literally spam cast your dailies and encounter powers. So using both of these is very nice. You don't have to use both of them. If you just want to use Preservation, that's up to you. You can use Protector's Friendship here. However, I prefer the recovery over Protector's Friendship. Now, like I said, if you are lucky enough to have a legendary mount, we're using Calvary's Warning, so that buff is increased even more. And then finally, we're using 1 Protector's Camaraderie. Everybody should be familiar with Protector's Camaraderie. It's just more overall DPS. So that's it, guys. That's going to wrap it up for the Mod 11 Hellbringer Fury build/guide. We did go over everything. If you guys do have any questions, as always, be sure to leave a comment below. Once Mod 11 does come to console, everything is going to change. We are going to be diving into double builds and multiple builds once we get the loadout feature. I'm looking very forward to it. So hopefully, Mod 11 comes soon. Unfortunately, you know, it's just a matter of time when it does come. But for mod 11, I will personally be running Hellbringer over Soulbinder. Soulbinder still a valid option, you guys. If you haven't seen the Soulbinder build, it's in the Warlock playlist. All the links will be in the description for the spell rotations and the written out guide, guys. So that's going to conclude the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, we're coming up to the point in the game now where we have so many different options and everything. I can put these guides together, but you guys can then take those guides and tinker them to your own needs. You can, you know, play around with them and find your certain niche that you prefer, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next